if we shift forward into another game that we've been having a jolly old time with, Baldur's Gate 3. I want to know how many of you, we're actually going to do a poll. We're going to do a poll. How many of you guys are playing Baldur's Gate 3? I mean, it looks like probably 20-ish, like 25% of you guys are playing, but 75 are not. That's crazy. Symbolic Legacy, I'm 85 hours in at the moment. Ooh, baby, that's awesome. Waiting for a sale, that's fair. What I will say is I encourage you to try it. I understand it's not necessarily up a lot of people's alley because it's isometric and then it's also turn-based. It's also narrative, so it's a slower moving game. But if you like narrative RPGs, it's gonna blow you away. It really will. But if you also need to wait for a sale, no shame there. Whether you're playing it or not, though, I'm sure you've heard it, how crazy successful it has been, blowing past everybody's expectations, which is frankly awesome. Like, whether you like the game or not, even if you've played it and you hate the game, it still is a good thing that an independent studio is dropping a game that is, whether you love it or not, it is a pro-consumer title. There's no big DLC tied to it. There's no microtransactions. There's no like day one DLC available that they're dropping at the same time. It's just a full, complete, solid game that is very well thought out, that isn't trying to appeal to everybody, isn't trying to do Grand Theft Auto mixed with The Witcher 3, mixed with Assassin's Creed. It's just coming out and doing what they do and does it very, 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 very well. And it's funny now, after all of the success, to see like Larian's boss describe their perception of the game just a few months ago. But Larian's boss worried that Baldur's Gate 3 had actually peaked in early access. So the massive 800,000 concurrent player base on Steam was way, way beyond their expectations. We also talked about this on stream the other day. He apparently had told their IT department to only prepare for around 100,000 concurrent players. He was like, honestly, I think that would be really successful. I wouldn't expect more than like 100,000 concurrent. And they've done 800,000. That's wild. That's wild. And now it is among Steam's all-time most played games, which is a huge achievement. I mean, it's right up there right now with Hogwarts Legacy, which was a huge launch in and of itself. So that's just crazy. That's wild. Vink said that he held his heart during the launch, hoping that millions of players didn't run into progress blocking bugs of some kind. I don't want to have that anger over me, but it's part of the risk making these very large RPGs, for real. On Friday, approximately 24 hours after Baldur's Gate 3 launched on PC, BG3 had already passed 500,000 concurrent players at the time, and Vink tweeted that he had informed IT managers, managing Larian's account login servers to expect something like 100,000 players max. Their last game, Divinity Original Sin 2, had peaked over at just over 90,000 concurrent players. It's just crazy. It's wildly successful. And the reason you should be rooting for this, and Asmongold also did a video and talked about this on stream, even if it's not your kind of game, even if you're not going to be playing it a lot, you should still try to support this kind of thing. You should still try to support these types of games. You guys remember all of the discussions from from developers from like Insomniac, and I think there was one from Ubisoft and then another from, I don't recall who the other one was from, but there's been a lot of developers that came out and said, don't expect games like Baldur's Gate 3 to come all the time. This is very exceptional. You shouldn't raise the bar up to Baldur's Gate 3 levels. This is just a very exceptional game, and you shouldn't expect this from other big budget studios. Which sat really weird with a lot of people. Everybody's like, well, dude, if the bar has been raised, you have to rise to it. I'm sorry that's difficult, but like you don't get to just be like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, no. It's like we've seen over like 15 years of YouTube content creators who, like back in the day, I don't know if you guys were watching content around that time, but back in like 2008, there were Let's Players, and there were what were like Call of Duty commentators. So like Wings of Redemption or DSP with fighting games, and those guys who now are considered lolcows. But the reason they're considered lolcows are there are a plethora of reasons for that. But one of the things that set them apart was that they started recording their gameplay footage with just a camera set up on a coffee table looking at the TV. And then it would capture their voice as they talked about it, and that's how they captured their videos. And so they would just prop their phone up or their video camera, whatever, and hit record, play the game. It looked terrible. The sound was terrible. And it just was the best anybody could do at the time. But as time went on, the bar raised. People got capture cards. And then other creators like PewDiePie eventually came along that had separate, very high quality microphones that they had spent hundreds of dollars on, which was unthought of at the time, that you'd spend so much money on a microphone for a video on YouTube. Like, who would do that? But they got specialized microphones and audio, and then they had editors balance all of the audio, and they had direct capture, and then they overlay that with a green screen to cut out the background from you. And then eventually they started investing in a lot of premium graphics and nice studio spaces and all this, and it raised the bar, raised the bar, raised the bar. And all along, there were people that were like, I don't think I should have to change how I make stuff. I don't think I should have to swap from using a camcorder. It sounds like too much work to get a capture card. And you know what? Those people fell by the wayside. Those people are not cutting edge Let's Players anymore. Like, they just aren't, because they tried to keep back with the way things used to be done, which might have been convenient, might have been easier, but the bar needs to raise. And that's how we make progress as an industry. And so I think it's ridiculous for a lot of these companies to come out and so quickly try to play damage control and shut down the idea that games like this are possible. As we've seen, they are possible. It just requires a crap ton of work, a lot of custom work on the engine. I mean, it's not going to be easy, of course, but as we've seen with 800,000 concurrent players, players want this. Players want a high quality RPG that they can play. That's what they want. That isn't filled with all this extra crap. And we even saw it with Hogwarts Legacy, where they came out and they could have done all sorts of really cringy pay-to-win stuff, you know, as we would expect from Warner Brothers, loot boxes, all that. But they didn't. It was just a solid game that people got to play and enjoy. So the reason it's important to support it is because every time this type of game balloons up into amazing success, hopefully the big guys upstairs, like the Strauss Zelnicks, the CEOs that make the big budgetary decisions of what gets greenlit for $100 million investment, those guys maybe will take notice and realize, okay, we can spend a lot of money on developing something that isn't crammed with microtransactions and predatory pricing models, and that's okay. It's okay. The game can still do very, very well. And I think that this is a tremendous success and is wonderful, wonderful to see. He took my thing.